Let's try this again. Ellen Ingalls here at pressure-free.com. And the topic today is wearables. Wearables like watches, anything that's tracking, anything biometric. And I'm coming up with this topic today because I've had clients in the past, and I had one yesterday, ask my opinion of wearables. And there's some interesting studies out there and articles out there, some research about how helpful are they, how not helpful they are. And I always come back to this. Is the information that you're getting causing you to trigger the stress response? Because the stress response is going to affect what you're seeing on your wearable. So, for example, if you wake up in the morning and your wearable shows that you didn't get a very good night's sleep, that could trigger the stress response because you think, oh no, I remember one client said, I'm just going to have a crappy day if they see that information. And then there goes the release of the hormones, and that's now going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy that things aren't going to go so well because we're going offline up here. And every cell of our body is now affected by these floods of hormones. Uh, there was a study that I read where there are people who suffer from having anxiety around their health in general, and with the notifications popping up, it's like every time one of those notifications pop up, it's very easy to trigger fight or flight. So taking a look at that, needing, basically assessing, is your wearable helping you or causing more distress? That is really the bottom line when I'm working with someone who asks me that question, who has a wearable and is seeing information. And what's interesting is getting to the root cause of why the data is what the data is. That to me is fascinating. I go back, whoa, probably one of my first clients, it must have been in 2010. It was a young runner. Running was his true passion. Like he was a distance runner, and he was having trouble regulating his heart rate, and it was to the point where they were going to pull him from running, and that was the thing that was like giving him the most joy in his life. So they were basically going to pull the thing that was giving the most joy in his life. And so he was wearing, this is before a lot of the tech that's come out. So he was wearing a full heart monitor day and night, 24/7, as they were monitoring all these spikes going on all day long, even at night. And so they tried several remedies, and he was in therapy. They were trying all sorts of things. And then at work, a friend of one of the parents at work heard about the work I was doing with someone at work and said, I wonder if that could be helpful to my son. So we got together, and it only took him a few days to begin to regulate his heart rate when he realized that so many things made him feel anxious. So many things caused him these little worries and that's what was releasing his stress hormones. That was spiking his heart rate. Was every time he went into fight or flight. It's fight or flight that's being monitored here, really. And so as we got together and started working with tools and having him notice these little moments and choosing something else, so much in his body got to be regulated, like his digestion and just so many things that had been a problem since he was a toddler, and that no one thought could ever be corrected. And he realized even just he had two big dogs, and if they barked, that was a trigger for him. So if you have a wearable, a couple more things about wearables. There is some radiation if you're wearing a wearable, and gosh, I go back to, would it be the 80s? I guess 70s, 80s. There was definitely a trend, and it's still in Amish country. I know this is to be true. At least it was when I was working with my midwife who did a lot of Amish births. In bedrooms, there are no electrical circuits. There's the bedrooms they keep very, very clean of anything. anything electric to have a beautiful rest. Um, so the your whole all your cells react to any sort of all these waves that are coming through us all the time, like the 5G towers out there, like all the things. So if you're putting something on your wrist, you're really exposed to all of that. So for some people that's a deal and they're like, I'm not going to wear a wearable. Um, so that's a thing, but thinking about, okay, so what are you tracking and why are you tracking it? If it's your heart rate you're tracking, can you just feel your heart rate? If your heart rate is elevated or not? Do you know what your resting rate is in general? Um, so you can, if you know your resting heart rate, you can probably tell when it's double that, right? If it gets above double that, that's when we're getting into some territory. So monitoring your heart rate can be done just with your hand. If this information is just too much for you, if it's really causing you to be anxious and to be worried about your health. Um, there was a case of a woman who was her heart was being monitored. There were some other things being monitored, and it was those notifications. Like she was getting them constantly. And that was just so keeping her in fight or flight, which was keeping the heart rate um, too high, just way too high. If you do go into a high heart rate, one of the fastest tools that I know to help settle the heart rate, I'm going to give you a couple actually, because this is really good for anyone who is going into a panic attack or you've been exercising and it seems hard to get your heart rate down. If you're super worried about something and at night you're lying in bed and you can just feel your heart rate going, wearable or not, that's what I want to give you some tips for today. So the first tip is something I did the other day, and that's doing a long, slow breath. A long, slow breath is one of the most effective ways to get that heart rate down. If you can start the breath in that 10-second window when you first notice that your heart rate is getting too high, like right there, you'll stand a much better chance of lowering it. But let's say your heart rate is already elevated, it may take several breaths to just get you in a really great space. And when I teach breathing, I have people breathe out first and tighten your abs a little. So you breathe out first through your mouth, tighten your abs a little, maybe go into a little C curve with your spine, like you're coiling up. I'll explain that in a moment. Then relax your belly and breathe in through your nose, like you're filling up a gas tank. So like my chest hardly moved because everything is like my lungs are just really expanding in my abdomen. Like it's just really filling up. You want surface area. Surface area is going to get more oxygen out and remove more CO2. So when you can do that, breathe out first, tighten your abs, relax your abs, breathe in. Now think about it. This is really, our cardiovascular system is truly amazingly built, right? It's really amazing. So a few long, slow breaths can help. Another thing can do is to settle your nervous system. I learned this from my body coach, Leila Veronica, is go down the tops of your arms and down the tops of your legs. So you can just go down the top of your arm over your hands, get your top of your hand super soft because we'll go like this. We'll hold tension all in the front parts of our body, the top parts of our body when we're scared, when we're worried, when we're afraid, when we're going into fight or flight. So if you go down the tops of your arms, tops of your body, that's very, very soothing. So you can rub down the tops of your thighs over those big quad muscles. That's just going to help settle your nervous system. Also, start a yawn. Like open your mouth really big and just start a yawn. That's another thing that settles the nervous system, but also is opening up to bring more air in. So just open your mouth really wide, and that will probably get you yawning. It's really funny how, especially if I'm working with a client who's had a big day, worked really hard, maybe had a lot of stressors hit them, and we get into session together, and invariably there'll be a point where they start to yawn, and I know that that's the point where I have gently I have helped them reduce their anxiety, but also just settle their nervous system a little bit. So they'll start yawning. And I always say, just take a great big yawn. Doesn't matter how many you need. This means I'm doing my job. Like I got your nervous system settled because they've been jacked up probably all day at work. This is very effective for executives, for leaders, for coaches, people who are helping others. It's oftentimes it's very easy to not protect ourselves and take on the energies of those we're helping too. So that's kind of an interesting thing. Um, so settling the nervous system whenever you get these notifications or whatever you see, and protecting yourself from not overreacting. So when you get the information from your wearable, you might have to put yourself in a pressure-free state before you even look, because just seeing the information can spike that heart rate and put you into fight or flight. And now you're under the influence of those hormones for hours. So it's kind of crazy. I mean, when you really look at the information from these wearables, my son has a wearable. I can see it on Strava, like what's going on. It's for some people it really is information overload. So how much, the other question I have is, and I'll ask this of clients too, is like how much time, brain space, and time are you taking up with these things monitoring you? And is that taking you away from the actions and activities that will actually truly lower your worry and lower your stress level because you're working better, you're more efficient, you're taking that time that you're spending all your time on your wearable and you're using it over here to bring more money in or to do something that actually mitigates all of the stressors that you're experiencing. So how are you using your brain time? What are you thinking about? I would be really interested to note that people who are very attached to their wearables, exactly how many minutes a day are they spending looking at it, thinking about it, wondering what to do? Like all of those things take up time and they can cause you to trigger the stress response. If it's not good numbers, like if it's not what you want to see. That's my last point. In one of the studies that I read about, people can get very obsessed with being perfect with their numbers. With the information from the wearable is tracking them, and they're aiming for this perfection, and they can feel very discouraged if they're not. It's just like anything else that we're aiming for, and feeling that we're falling short. So a perfectionist around the information, perfectionist tendency can come up for people. So those are my thoughts about wearables. If it works for you, it's fabulous. If you don't react to the information and you don't obsess over it, and it's providing you something that you really want to know, that's fabulous. But if it is causing any sort of perfectionist tendencies or anxiety, worry, um, that's another issue. Or again, the pinging of the notifications, like, or I guess it's here every time you're getting a notification. Also, if you're looking to just kind of have less electromagnetic radiation coming into your body, you might want to just put it out in another room while you're sleeping. And sleep is one of the reasons why people do wear wearables. I will dig into that tomorrow. How can you really get a great night's sleep, and what can you do if you wake up in the middle of the night? Let's go into sleep tomorrow because I know that that is also something that my clients bring up a lot. Sometimes they don't even bring it up, but after we've worked together, they've gained such a quality sleep. I had one client who I've worked with a few years ago who came on an alumni night, and she's like, I've had 4 years of sleep, great sleep almost every single night since working with pressure freeze. So sleep is definitely something I believe we deserve to have a beautiful night's sleep, a restorative sleep that renews, refreshes, and regenerates us. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. I wish you a great pressure-free day. And yeah, if you have thoughts on wearables, you can DM me too if you don't want to put it in the comments. But I would love to know your suggestions or thoughts around wearables because it's certainly more and more of my clients have been using wearables, and it's a rather new phenomenon when it comes to what it's doing psychologically. So I think I would love your thoughts. Have a great pressure-free day. Bye.